Hey there everyone, this is Natalie with the Influence Marketing Platform, and today we're going to talk about the hows and whys you should sync something like Lead Source campaign from Microsoft Dynamics or whichever CRM you're using into your marketing automation platform. Of course, we're going to use Influence Marketing Platform as our example today, but the practice could apply no matter what software tool you're using. So to get things started, let's first talk about Source Campaign and how it's different from something like Lead Source. So looking here at my record in Microsoft Dynamics, you've kind of got two options for which data point you might want to sync to your marketing automation platform, and maybe you want to sync both. At first, you've got Lead Source, which tends to be your big bucket. What type of campaign is this? Maybe digital campaign, trade show, direct mail, something to that effect. And then you have your Source Campaign, which tends to be the actual event taking place. So if this were trade show, for example, that might be our Lead Source, and then our Source Campaign would be which specific trade show are we trying to sync over. So once you set this up in the Influence Marketing Platform, you'll see that you've got some options for syncing over your fields. Here it's going to be a pick list. So you'll select your entity, in this case leads, you'll select your Dynamics field, in this case Lead Source, and then we're going to select our custom email field here from the Influence Marketing Platform, which is going to be Lead Source also. Naming conventions are often important here so you don't lose track of what's named in Dynamics and how that might be named in Influence, but setting up the actual sync itself is super easy. Just connect those two dots with your custom fields and off you go. So why might we want to do this, and what's the value of it? Well, first of all, as you start to think about how you're handling your data in your Influence Marketing Platform account, you can do a couple things with this data point. First, personalization. So if you wanted to, say, personalize why somebody knows you or remind them as part of a workflow what it is that they learned about you or where they first learned about you, that can be a really useful tool. Segmentation is also important. Maybe you want to create some automated segments based on where you met people and what their lead source is. And then lastly, there's a reporting function as well. So if you're trying to figure out which of your lead sources are having the biggest impact on your brand, syncing that over into your marketing automation platform can give you access to some data points that are happening on the marketing automation side instead of just on the Microsoft Dynamics side, where you might get things like sales data. So let's start by talking about personalization. For example, let's say that you wanted to run a workflow that's powered by a marketing list in Microsoft Dynamics. This is a pretty common use case, and usually what we're looking at here is that you'll have somebody who maybe is getting worked as part of the sales funnel, and then at some point the salesperson decides, you know what, I've tried to reach out to this inbound lead and I haven't made contact. Well, what you can do is you can have your sales team add leads like that into a marketing list that gets picked up by the Influence Marketing Platform integration and starts a triggered nurture series. Sometimes you might want to run this for the better course of a year, and maybe you even want to add it by saying, hey, these are leads that have been nurtured. Now we're going to drop them into a no response. Maybe we want to run some remarketing ads to them. However the case might be, you know to treat them a little differently than those unqualified leads. Now, lead source comes in importance here because a lot of times this is a really long funnel. And so you might be triggering these on behalf of the record owner in Microsoft Dynamics. And just to remind somebody how and why they first met you, you might want to drop in something like lead source. In this case here, we've dropped in custom 65. That's our variable for marketing automation, or for lead source for us in our marketing automation platform. And then you might want to have a fallback value just in case that data point doesn't exist or something strange might happen. Always a good practice to have that here. The benefit of doing it in a nurture like this is that there's never any question as to how this person got on the list. You're telling them, hey, remember you requested information from us from custom 65, whatever that's your website or a trade show or an inbound lead source of some other kind. It's a nice reminder, and they won't think, why am I getting this email and who is this from? Now, something else you might consider here is that it's really important that you've got a legible name for this lead source in Dynamics, especially if you're setting up as part of a sync. So really think hard before you run a campaign like this about your naming conventions in Source Campaign and Dynamics. If they're kind of strange or if they're really kind of internal focused, they might not read naturally in this email. And so you might want to take a look at how you're naming them in Dynamics and make sure that it does read naturally and won't read in a really strange manner once it gets synced over as a data point as part of an automated series. So what else can you do with this data point? Well, the next thing is you might want to run some automated queries. So let's say you want to go to a trade show. In this case, we go to Community Summit, previously CRMUG Summit. And maybe before each year, we want to go back and say, let's look at everyone we met at that conference in the past and send them an email that says we're going to be there again. So we can really quickly query in the influence marketing platform and say, go find me everyone who's got CRMUG Summit, whatever year, as their actual lead source. And let's create a group. Now, if this is going to be a lead-facing email, we may want to segment out all people who are in our active list of CRM contacts. So here we might look at active CRM contacts, and we'll create a group just by hitting search and then saving it either as static or dynamic that says, okay, now we know we've got a list of open leads that we've met at CRMUG Summit in the past who never made it to the opportunity or client phase as an active CRM contact. So another way you might think of this as well is, are there some reporting functions? So maybe you're trying to figure out, hey, is this a good lead source for us? Well, we can query and we can take a look at something like contact score. So here we might want to say, of all the people who came from that particular lead source, how many of them made it to, say, a contact score of greater than 5? And we can query that data point as well and start to understand, hey, is this a good fit for us? Are we seeing some good engagement on the back end of this conference? So it doesn't just have to be creating automated segments. Sometimes it's looking at reports. You may also want to query on how many new people from this campaign were net new to our marketing automation platform as, say, marketing qualified leads. Well, if you're syncing over your active CRM contacts like we just looked at, that might give you a good way to, say, query something like date created on. So if we want to get back in here and we want to say, let's say date added to the system, and we could say is after the date of this campaign. We could do a calculated or specific date, and we could figure out how many net new leads were entered into our marketing automation platform who aren't in Dynamics, so that we know how many new marketing qualified leads we added as a result of this campaign. Lastly, we may also want to take a look at how Source Campaign is used in an email send. So this is a test send, but if we were to send out a big email and we wanted to know engagement based on lead source, maybe we want to pull a report that says, let's look at everyone who opened this email or everyone who clicked on this email, and let's pair it against source from Dynamics. And we could start to get a sense of how people might be engaging with our conversion-ready emails, our nurture-ready emails, depending on what lead source they came from in the first place. So there are tons of ways to use this data point. Sometimes it's more for reporting purposes, sometimes it's for personalization, but it's a great practice to sync over that lead source or source campaign field for Microsoft Dynamics to really make the most of how you're leveraging your campaign fields in Dynamics. If you want to learn more about the influence marketing platform's integration with Microsoft Dynamics, we would love to talk to you about it. Just send us a quick email at expert@emfluence.com or visit us at our website at emarketingplatform.com. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.